Now that you have clarity on where they're going and you're consistently helping them tie themselves back to where they want to go, and you're really good at creating an extra space to be able to hold back and let them like talk about what's going on so you can sort of listen effectively and let them solve their own problems, there is an element where you can then transition into giving advice or giving frameworks or giving coaching. Now, one of the things that I've always found to be super powerful is that you always want to offer to ask permission before you give any kind of coaching or any kind of advice. Now, here's the secret. And again, if we've been working together for a while, you'll know this. If you don't ask permission, it's always like you're taking, right? And so it's for you, not for them. If you can ask someone, hey, can I ask you a question? Hey, do you mind if I call you out on something? Hey, do you mind if I point something out? And again, you would think that you always have permission because, hey, they're paying you. Like, what are they paying you for? But if you don't ask, very often they might feel judged or, like whatever it might be. So it's always good to get permission, even though they're actually paying you to do exactly this, right? They'll let them say, yeah, tell me, please. That's what I'm paying you for. As soon as you hear something like that, you know you've done a great job, and now you can actually give them what they're asking for. Now, one of the things is there's a concept that the more that you have to work at something, the more you're going to be rewarded for it. So the reality is you want to give people context for the struggles they're having. And oftentimes it's the small incremental changes that people make over time that actually makes the biggest difference. Now, again, if you're the coach, you might feel pressure. Oh my God, if they fix just this, will they feel like they got their money's work? And the answer is usually if they fix this small thing, they will get their money's worth and a lot more. And it's really good to do that. So what does that mean specifically? You want to start to notice the patterns they have. See, because the interesting thing is that most people, their biggest challenge is that they're not doing the one or two things that are right next to them that are actually going to make the biggest difference. For example, you're helping someone with a diet, and they're going to want to know you want to like come in and like do all the cool stuff. Well, let's get you the macros dialed in. Let's get you the workouts dialed in, and they're eating like tubs of ice cream. It's like the truth is, without even jumping into macros, without even jumping into like a calorie plan, let's talk about the ice cream. How much ice cream are you actually eating? Can you just eat a little bit less ice cream? Could you just start to notice yourself as you start to eat the ice cream, what's going on in your life? Learning to create some level of awareness in their life over what goes in their mouth. I can't tell you, this is a crazy thing. Like, certain people throughout their life will have these major things that they're not doing. Again, the whole framework of how I've taught my clients to build businesses is to do the one thing they don't want to do, which is like actually talk to real people that could give them actual money, right? I can make a podcast, I can do a YouTube channel, I could network, I could get more certifications, but actually talking to people that could pay me? No, I'm not ready to do that. One of the secrets to my success is like, well, what do you need to just feel confident enough to talk to the person next door about what the problem they're already having is? So it's like finding that little thing. And then again, when you get to a place where you're actually going to give them something practical, that's where you usually find the real objections rather. Again, in a sales process, if you never ask for the money, you'll never get the objection. But if you never ask for the money, you're never going to get the money. And when they start bringing up the objections, then you actually are getting somewhere. You're actually moving through the no's to get to the actual yes. Coaching is no different, right? Giving someone, based on their pattern, based on their structure, based on the way they're thinking, asking with permission, hey, can I point something out? What would be the smallest thing that you could do right now to change that loop? I had this still goes down in my annals as like the best advice I've ever given. Whatever. I had a client that was struggling in his marriage, and he said something along the lines of like, I'm always yelling at my wife that I want more X, Y, and Z. And I said, interesting. Now, again, this guy is not an idiot. This guy's brilliant. This guy's built multiple empires, multiple times, survived tremendous financial challenges, has a team that loves him, multiple teams that love him. He's just like a beacon of light. But he brought this thing up, and this was like, oh, whoa, hang on. What'd you say? He's like, I yell at my wife to X, Y, and Z. I said, interesting. Out of curiosity, how often does that dynamic happen where you'll say something, she won't listen, you'll yell at her? He said, yeah, pretty often. I said, interesting. How likely do you think she will be to comply to what you want if you yell at her? He said, probably not terribly likely. I said, well, how much has it worked in the past? He says, it never works. I said, awesome. I said, so maybe it'd be possible that if you want something, how do you get it without yelling at your wife? He said, well, that's interesting. maybe I can. And again, this is like classic coaching. This is like a real thing. I wish again, we were like in person before I made my rule that I don't usually meet people in person. That I wish I could have recorded because it was so awesome. Because he was like, he noticed his pattern. He's like, oh my God, I do always yell at her and she doesn't do what I want. And then I get mad and I yell more. And then she does less of what I want. I said, cool. So what would be the opposite of that? He said, well, I might not yell at her at all, but I can ask her, but she might not listen to that. So what could you do? He said, maybe I could ask her what she wants. Maybe I could set things up where, like it could be a conversation when I don't actually need it, but I can ask what would have to happen for this to occur, right? And by me noticing the pattern that he had and asking, hey, do you mind if I point something out? Can I coach you on that? He was very receptive to it and he saw it himself. So the biggest thing that we're trying to do as a coach is to notice what they're not noticing, to see the things that they're not seeing, to notice the patterns they keep looping over and over again, and then trying to put a stop to that pattern and asking what small thing could they implement to break that pattern. Now, again, if you usually give more than that, you'll get lost in the complexity. And you might feel good like, wow, I just gave them an 85-step plan to changing their life and, the next 400 years. It's like, cool. That's not going to do anything. But if you can give one small little thing that I can implement today, they interviewed, I'm blanking on it. The guy that did Sam Adams' beer, it's Jim someone. I can look it up. So you know what? I'm gonna look it up. Who made Sam Adams beer? His name is, this way I can be focused with you for the rest of this training session. Jim Koch. Yep, Jim Koch. So Jim Koch, they interviewed him. He's a billionaire. He's made $2 billion with beer. And they asked him, what was your best advice that you ever got in business? He said, I had an uncle, and at that time I was trying to buy computers. And I went to my uncle, and my uncle said, I've seen lots of businesses go out of business. I've seen lots of businesses fold because they had even though they had computers. He said, I've never seen a business fold because they had too many customers. They had too many sales. He said, go out and get one sale a day. If you get one sale a day, your business will always thrive. So again, that's the scariest thing because I can go spend money, no problem to get a computer. That's easy. But actually talking to someone that's going to, so a little piece of advice is the root of a $2 billion beer empire. Right? So that's the concept. It's like the uncle didn't give him, again, and I'm sure this guy, I'm sure he has probably got teams of financial analysts and all the numbers and all the things. At the end of the day, he's lived by basic principles. Principles like get one customer a day. I talked to another entrepreneur that was just so incredibly successful. And it was the same thing. He said, get $1 from one person one time, and then you have a business. So these are things. Now, again, we're not necessarily just talking about business, but like in marriage, in life, in health and fitness, someone asked me, what's one thing I can do for my health? I said, well, how much water do you drink? He's like, not really much. I drink soda. I'm like, cool. Could you try to drink two water bottles of water a day? He's like, cool. I spoke to him 2 months later. And he said, and how much exercise? I said, well, what do you do right now? He said, not much. I said, can you commit to walking 15 minutes every other day? He's like, yeah, I can do that. I said, sweet. So I said, 2 things of water and walk. Next time I met him, I was like, what happened? He's like, well, you should know I lost 25 pounds. I was like, that's insane. How'd that happen? It's like, well, I started doing that. Then I realized maybe I need to take Ozempic. And I'm like, okay, great. But the reality was, it was him putting the little things in that enabled him to go make the next step for his health. Right? Now, again, had I started with this crazy thing, let's lose 25 pounds and this is what you could do and whatever, it's like, it wouldn't have worked. You wouldn't have done it. But the little things will start to make a very big effect. So slowing down, getting permission, noticing where you can break patterns, and then lovingly challenging your clients and helping them realize how hard this is for them. I have one last story from a client that I worked with that I absolutely love. And I was having him reiterate what I had said. And I was training him asking questions. And he said something to another person. We were role playing. And I noticed he didn't ask the question. I said, you didn't ask a question? He said, yeah, I did. I said, yeah. And then I asked everyone else that was watching. I said, did he ask a question? And everyone was like, no. He made a statement. I said, so he's like, oh my God, are you serious? I said, yeah. So the craziest thing was, now again, for this person, did he make $1 billion in the first 5 minutes we were talking? I was like, no. But if I made him aware that where he thinks he might be asking questions, he's actually making statements, that can completely change the trajectory of his life and his business. So again, look for the little things, make it simple, and call people's attention to that, and then verify and validate how difficult making the little changes actually are. But those are the things that actually make the big changes in your business.